Okay, thank you, Jenny. And firstly, actually, congratulations, Jenny and the team, for what has been a spectacular couple of days. And I know some of the people, Glenn was involved in some of the work earlier in the week. Some of you have been going for 5 days. Some of you were at Switch last week, FinTech Festival. I mean, it's been a fairly full-on 2 weeks. So it's pretty exciting to see that you're all still hanging in there. And I think very much it's great. Ted's remarks this morning and the previous panel, I think, sort of parlays into what we're going to talk about very well. But just a couple of observations from me before I actually introduce the panel. I think, again, picking up particularly on some of the things that Trina said in the last panel, the conversation has actually changed over the 3 days. Again, so take this booklet, which I think is fab, because the app is terrific, but I like to be able to turn the pages and see where we've been. We started out with Jim Andrew from PepsiCo on Wednesday, talking about their innovation journey. We've talked a lot about, initially in the first day, about plant-based protein. Then the conversation went to alternative protein. And then people sort of said, well, hang on, let's just talk about protein. And also, initially, people were starting to talk about sustainability. And that was coming. And then all of a sudden, just outside the wonderful conversations here in the room, we're having even better, on many occasions, and deeper conversations outside. People have started to talk about resilience and saying, listen, sustainability is kind of table stakes, and that's what we have to do. But now we have to be resilient, which I think is a very interesting concept to sort of think, how are we all going to survive? How do we react? How do we innovate? How do we build the culture? How do we do all of these things? And also Trina actually got it in before I wanted to say it, about a movement. And again, don't worry, this is not a political movement or a pronouncement here, but we're now seeing people starting to feel that we are part of a movement. We, by being here, are part of a movement. You've signed up to something a lot bigger than just buying a ticket. This is about the future. There are 10 years, and what is it? 10 years, 39 days to 2030. 10 years, 39 days to 2030. It's becoming very real. And once the clock hits midnight in December, many of you heard me say this, it's going to be less than 10 years to 2030. The conversation, I guarantee, next year will be different. Because every time we talk about 2030, it's going to be getting closer and closer. And I do think that we have to take account of that. And also when we think about the numbers, the first couple of days we were talking about 9.7 billion by 2050, then it was 8 billion 2030. Then with the great report that Temasek, PwC and Rabobank's released, we're now thinking about another 250 million people in the region, another Indonesia. Expenditure on food from 4 trillion to 8 trillion. 800 billion investment over the next 10 years. So the numbers have changed just in a matter of days. So the conversation, the language has changed, the numbers have changed, and now bringing it back to where we are is the opportunities, corporate innovation. Now again, and I'll stop talking in a second, but corporate innovation is not just about corporates doing it, of course it's with startups, and the future is not just about startups. I'm not insulting you, startups, but it is about how do we do it together, and that's essentially the tone of this panel. So, just very briefly, let me introduce our panel. On my left is Sirichit from Taiwan in Thailand. Sirichit is the AVP, Group Innovation and Market Development. And I'm going to come back to each of them in a moment and just explain and sort of elicit from them some of their views on innovation. Next is Dirk Oyen from where are you, Dirk, from? You're from ADM, of course, one of the big four, and you're General Manager, Human Nutrition, Southeast Asia. Next to Dirk is Kerry, who's EVP Food Solutions from SATS, and finally down the other end is Glenn Caton, who's SVP Growth, Asia, Australia, Middle East, and Africa for MONDELÄZ. And I think we all have a pretty good idea. MONDELÄZ, of course, it's about how to empower people to snack better. THAILAND is about starch and starch-related goods. ADM, of course, being one of the big fours, one of the largest agricultural processors in the world. And SATS is the leading provider of food solutions and gateway services in the region. So, Sirichit, you sort of talked about meeting unmet consumer needs when we talked about innovation. So just briefly, what's your perspective on innovation and your role in innovation in your organization, just to get us going?
I think based on my role as a group innovation, we have very important role to play, because innovation is not about process, it's about people. And the important part is how can we better in managing innovation in our organization. And for Taiwan, based on our business, we focus on B2B as well as B2C. And on the starch side, what we would like to do, our key purpose is how can we create value from farm to shelf. And when we say we would like to create value from farm, how can we make our farmers living better? So, and this also comes from the perspective of innovations. And but on the other side, we also focus on B2C, because we produce noodles, we produce vermicellis, and noodles is play a very critical role in Thailand, because noodles is one of the core ingredients in our cuisine. So it also our responsibility how we can make the life of our consumer healthier and happy. So this is very important, how with the role of group innovation, how can we understand the unmet needs of the consumer, the customer, as well as the stakeholder, and translate it into the innovation that make them happy and healthy.
Customer point of view. Dirk, how about you? I know innovation's part of ADM's DNA. Your particular take, your role, how do you sort of manage innovation?
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, I think innovation, as you said, is a part of the DNA of ADM. And I think also if you introduced ADM as an agricultural processor, I think in the last weeks, our new purpose has been communicated to the market, and where our purpose is now unlocking the power of nature. And I think in that sentence, we really look at not only processing, it's really about innovating from the very basic part of the raw materials, from the commodities. Yep. And if you look at how ADM has transformed over the last years, in the last 5 years, the human nutrition division has been created and formed. A lot of investments have been done there, and that division really brings all the knowledge of the ingredients and bringing the raw materials from where they need to be, and combining that with everything you need to create new products and bring that innovation. So if you look at human nutrition, we always say internally that we are more than a flavor house. We are more than a protein house, because innovation is not about one single part of a product. We really have to understand what do the consumers want today, what are the best nutritions we can get out of the ingredients, and bringing them together in solutions. So when we think about innovation, we think innovation on two levels. One is looking at from the consumer perspective, what kind of new products would they want, but also is what can we unlock from the science that we have from our raw materials.
Okay.
So innovation is across the spectrum.
I'm going to jump to Glenn just to mix it up. Sorry, Kerry. Glenn, how do you see yourself as a kind of a conductor or a joiner of the dots? Where's your perspective and sort of role in innovation, MONDELÄZ?
Yeah, thanks, Adam, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, I described to you when we were chatting about ideas are the currency of growth, and part of my job is to foster a culture where we collect more dots and connect them in new and interesting ways to solve problems for consumers and customers, and even internal processes. To drive growth. And I think, we're going to talk a little bit about how we do that internally, but also externally in partnership with startups and an ecosystem of innovation. We can't do it all of ourselves. So the collection of dots requires you to look outside the four walls of MONDELÄZ, and really, opportunities like this, working with startups, people like yourselves, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. I would like to comment as well on the idea of sustainability briefly, and health and nutrition, the trends that we've been talking about over the week and particularly this morning. You know, one of the roles of bigger companies, it's almost polarized as small startups are attacking this, and will they get scale? One of the advantages of big companies, at scale you can make a huge difference. And at MONDELÄZ we are absolutely investing in sustainably sourcing our raw materials. In cocoa we're investing $400 million, in sustainable palm. We're innovating on our core products with reduced sugar. We're looking at fortification of brands like Bournvita in India to add nutritional health in areas where aspirants struggle on nutrition. So the benefits, I think, of larger companies, if you really tackle these trends on bigger brands, you can make an impact at scale faster, and we're certainly focused on that. So one aspect of our innovation is absolutely trying to tackle these head on, not just with new small brands and partnerships, but renovating our core business to make a big difference at scale.
Okay, we'll come back to sort of obviously how you're doing that, but Kerry, your view on innovation, your role?
Yeah, so in SATS, we take a technology-driven and people-led approach towards innovation. And we have been investing quite a fair bit on new food technologies, in particular looking at shelf life extension. We serve across Asia about 170 million meals a year and still growing. Every little thing we can change can make a huge impact to how we actually produce the food and actually reduce wastage as well. So we're very keen on working with partners to actually bring some of these new technologies into our process and obviously benefit from that. The customers we serve, the airlines, the institutions, they're all looking for a more sustainable way of feeding their customers. So we take a view that we don't have all the answers, very much like MONDELÄZ as well. It's about having the ecosystem. We are in the midst of trying to build an ecosystem where we can leverage on whether it's startups or venture funds. Clearly, Temasek, it's obviously our largest shareholders. We're working very closely with them, learning from the best out in whether it's in the world, to bring some of these ideas into Asia, and we want to be the catalyst. And Singapore is a good platform for us to take some of these technologies, transform them, and obviously adapt them to the Asian palate, and hopefully, we use our different demand channels to supply some of these nutritious food.
Well, you just mentioned the platform word. We haven't heard it for a while, but just last night you effectively launched a new platform, and that's about collaboration with startups. Maybe just sort of give us a few details on what that was all about.
Yeah, so in SATS, in the food solution side, we have this company called Country Foods. So it's actually our distribution and strategic procurement arm for us. So last night we actually launched our alternate protein platform in conjunction with Temasek and EDB. So we actually are signing up quite a few alternate protein companies where we're working with them using our culinary expertise. We have quite a lot of chefs in our network to help some of these companies develop products that can suit the Asian taste, but more importantly, using our channels as well as a means for them to scale the business. I mean, we know that startups are looking for ability to scale. We do have very big demand channels that we can leverage on. So we want to work with them and see how we can bring the products to bear. I think the earlier panel talked about a lot of education for the consumers. So we want to be the conduit actually to help them, not just in Singapore, but across Asia as well.
So just on that platform is now kind of open for business. You're encouraging people to contact you if they're wanting to get a spot on that platform?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we have a team built together. Are we there 100%? No, but we're starting to build those capabilities across Asia. In particular, we're focusing very much on Southeast Asia, China, India, and we have a fairly large business also in Japan, which we think also has a lot of potential opportunity.
Okay. Dirk, in terms of collaboration with startups, how is ADM going about it in your area? What sort of collaborations or what models do you think are working well for you?
Yeah, so innovation and helping startup is something that ADM has been doing for a very long time, and I think also some of the big brands in the world have seen ADM as a home where they started. I think what I mentioned earlier is that understanding the value chain and starting with the commodities and understanding where the raw materials are coming from, and now with human nutrition bringing together different aspects of every food and beverage, from be it flavors, proteins, but that's not where ADM will stop. So I think when you look at working with startups, it's not that we only show them different flavors or different ingredients. We show them how the concept is made. And also we have great people in our team that also will help them actually produce it.
So, but just perhaps zero in a bit, how are you specifically, if I want to work with you and I'm a startup, how do I get to be working with you? Is there a particular program? How does it happen?
No, so it's events like this where we meet people, or they come and approach us. Mm-hmm. We have an open door policy. If you have a good idea, there's also I've met people here that we have invited to our facility next week, where we can see what they have already done so far, and then we can see with our technical people and also with our people that can understand how to scale it up, we can really help them go to the next level.
Great, okay.
With our ingredients or with our network of our partners.
So that's 2 offers for 2 so far, so we're doing well. Glenn, MONDELÄZ, what are the kind of models that you're looking at for sort of collaboration with startups and opening up your networks and your abilities?
Yeah, it'll be 3 out of 3, I think. Yeah, so I mean, I think for us, I mean, stating the obvious, change is accelerating, barriers to entry are lowering. And as a company like ours, if we operate like we did 20 years ago, we won't survive and thrive in the future. So we want to completely transform how we operate, both internally and externally in partnership. So internally, we are trying to shift our culture to more speed, more agility, more risk-taking, and there's a whole program on that. But part of that is engaging more externally, and we've got a number of programs to do that. We've got a concept called Snack Futures, which looks to partner with startups on renovating our core brands, innovation on new. So we recently had our team for 6 weeks out in California launching a Kapow brand, which we've partnered with Barry Callebaut on, which is a plant-based health and sustainability brand from the waste of the cocoa fruit, and we hope to scale that up. An example of innovation in Snack Futures, and then venture funding. So we look to invest in startups, particularly the area of health and sustainability, but also in premium and other parts of snacking. The second area is more in the technical side on science, and we obviously work extensively with A-Star here in Singapore and beyond. And you can go on MONDELÄZ collaboration.com. There's 12 plus areas where we're looking for startups in science and technology in areas of relevance to our business, and it's from fruit to gluten alternatives to fiber to sugar alternatives, a whole host of where we want technical innovation that we can't do ourselves. So Snack Futures in many areas, MONDELÄZ collaboration in science and technology, and the third is digital innovation. We've just launched a digital innovation hub in Mumbai in India. We're expanding that now to the UK and the US. And that is open sourcing ideas around how do we drive faster growth and reduce and improve productivity. And we get startups in to try and address business problems. So we identify what are our business challenges and opportunities, and we push them out and say, invite people in to collaborate on solutions in a digital innovation hub. So a whole host of different mechanics, both here in Asia and beyond.
So I think, and again, we've heard a couple of times over the last couple of days, there's never going to be one thing. There's not going to be one program, one approach. What about in Thailand, Sirichit? What are the kind of approaches, or how are companies sort of unlocking growth potential through innovation in Thailand?
Thank you, Adam. So for Taiwan, we are the local-based traditional companies. So if we would like to play regional role in the future in 2030, we would like to play global players. We will need to transform ourselves quickly, especially building innovation capabilities. And we have taken different approach. So for our starch business, because we are currently we are the tapioca base, but in order to meet the global demand, we position ourselves not only the starch-based ingredients, but we aim for plant-based solutions. Not only the ingredients, but also the plant-based food solutions. So we have different kind of projects going on internally, as well as connect with external expertise in different kind of collaborations. And the other part that we see as very important is how can we strengthen ourselves, putting in place a good ecosystem inside the organization. Because but the very important asset to our company is our people. So we will need to give them some freedom to be creative, as well as ability to transform good idea into good innovations. And the other thing that we are also very active in connecting with the ecosystem outside the company. We put our R&D team in the university as an outpost so that we can connect more, work more, and then learn more as well. So this is a different approach that we have taken.
And you've touched on starting to get at the core of sort of the topic here about culture, because we also, we want an innovative culture. We want the right mindset. But folks, what are you actually doing to create that culture? And we can say this, and we're creating an open innovation culture, but what do you actually do to make that a reality as opposed to a bumper sticker or a sign on the wall? Dirk, do you want to have a swing at that?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think it's, bumper stickers are great. But I think it's really delivering it to the market, and I think that's something that when you look at innovation for us internally, it's also something that we push ourselves towards. And this is, I think, also my role in the organization is to create the environment and also make sure the resources are there to really be able to execute on that. So innovation is we have programs for that we really spend 2-3 days. And we pull out a big part of our organization. They go into the market, they talk to people, and sit together to think about what should we bring as innovation next. And I really push that through to actually getting the products. So it's really having the resources and allowing the organization to have the time.
Yeah, I mean, the resources is right, because too often what comes down from the top, hey, we want to be more innovative, let's go and collaborate with startups. And this is said to people who are already working 60, 70 hours a week, and now they're asked to do something else without actually taking work away and freeing up resources, which from the work that we do with a lot of corporates, that's the biggest problem. People don't have time to do it. But maybe just sort of the difference between Kerry and Glenn. MONDELÄZ obviously is a big marketing company. You're pushing out there, you're doing exciting things, you're trying things. Kerry, because you're delivering millions of meals, I mean, you have to be, process. Just to hear from both of you of how do you create that kind of mindset in your organizations, because you're coming both from different points of view.
Well, SAT's, is obviously a 70-year-old company with a lot of tradition and all that. If you want to suddenly switch and be very innovative, it takes time. For us, the key is employee engagement. We actually decided to then invest in a different team and bring external folks with a different mindset and skill set to come in, and at the same time infuse them with existing team members who's got the history and the background and get them to work together as a team. But I think my role really is to lead by showing them what's possible, bringing them to overseas tours to see what other companies have done, and showing what is possible for SATs. And at the same time, giving very specific projects for them to work on. We've now started to work on sprints. In the past, it will take 3 to 6 months to get something done, but now we have sprints that last for anything between 4 weeks to 8 weeks. And if the idea fails, we'll drop it and we move on. And I think it's important as a leadership team within SATs, we actually embrace this kind of way of working and allow our employees to actually take the risk, and then actually giving them then the connection and then obviously the resource to make it happen. Just to dive into some specifics there, how long have you been doing the sprints, and how long has the external sort of influx of people been going on? Okay, I just joined SATs about 1.5 years ago, so the sprints and all that just started sometime this year. And are you starting to see the sort of the osmosis effect or direct effect permeating? You're a big organization. Can you see measurable effects inside this time? Yeah, look, there's a lot of excitement created when we started to show some of the successes we have with the sprints. And you now get employees in different departments asking about, hey, what's happening here, yeah, right? Can we be part of it? So I think that to me is a sign of success internally. I think that's right.
Glenn, what's your experience in this?
Yeah, thanks. I'll start sort of quite conceptual and then maybe very practical, but I'm impressed Kerry's gone from 6 months to 6 weeks. We're trying to go from 2 years to 6 months maybe, so you're ahead of us there. But I mean, joking aside, I think first of all you've got to have a strong why. You know, why does the company need to change? Because otherwise all change programs will fail. And our why is simply the fast-changing external world and making our brands relevant and purpose-led. And if we don't adapt and adopt and move at faster speed, people will just move past us. So there's a very compelling reason why we need to change, not just what we do, but how we do it. And that's coming very, very much from the top through the organisation. Then we're very explicit about the shift in culture, where we are today, where we're trying to head. We translate that through measurement systems on speed of innovation, on process innovation in our company, on cultural change about agile mindset and growth mindset. What is that concept? How can you live it? On leadership behaviors, people like me coming to conferences, connecting and encouraging my team to do it. And then down to more practical things like agile methodology, like Kerry touched on sprints. You know that's a new methodology we're trialing in our business to get dedicated teams who aren't, doing it on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock, but, they're dedicated coming off for 6-week sprints, very similar concepts to innovate faster, scale up where relevant. And we've got an example, with Alibaba in China, where we've gone with them, leveraging their big data, getting insight, looking at the shopping basket, and now we've got sort of mini Oreos, nuts and fruit in a bag. That took 6 weeks from idea to basically approval and another 4 months to launch. I mean, joking aside, our innovation funnel may take 1.5 to 2 years typically. Very, very right through from intent to leadership to measurement to systems, processes and methodologies to try and shift what we do and how we do it.
There's a lot there, but there's consistency with what Kerry's doing. And perhaps shifting gears slightly, Sirichit, do you see that there's a lot of difference between sort of innovation in Asian companies? You've worked for Nestle, you're now working for Taiwan. Do you feel that there is a difference in the way that Asian companies are innovating versus MNCs?
I think I would say I would like to take the example of small is beautiful. Sometimes when we work with the small company, the good thing is we can be much faster in terms of decision making, and also agility in terms of approach, because we can align quickly and then in terms of direction and then we go ahead. But with sometimes with the MNC company, with a different hierarchy, with a different organization structure, with the complexity inside the organization, alignment, P-alignment, and then P-alignment, so many alignment, but sometimes we cannot make any decision. So it's somehow very frustrated for people who work in innovation that they would like to get clear direction how to move on. So, but on the other side, with the MNC company, because of the scale, what they can do is when they have already clear direction, they can do much bigger impact, leveraging that skill they have. So there, I think that I would say there are pro and con, and if we can leverage and embrace properly, it can be a best solution for the organization.
And perhaps just a general one, but you and Dirk, maybe Glenn, do you think in the past that we as the large organizations have given Asia enough of their own voice in terms of innovation from Asia for Asia, or if we had a lot of North American and European innovation directed, and do you see that changing? Dirk?
Yeah, it's I think a very good topic. I think for us, we have been established now here only a couple of years, and what we do is we bridge the different continents together. But I think if you look at the market in general here, I think in the previous panel discussion they mentioned that Coca-Cola brought a product into this region. Now they're bringing the plant-based burger into this region, so maybe they're catching up on that. But I think it's this region itself that I see so much potential, which is not being unlocked into a broader setting. If you look at plant-based, I think if there's a region where plant-based is already established, and I would even argue that it is already established here, soy milk. Well, I think everybody that's born here in this region has has grown up with it, and now we are coming saying, oh, the new thing is plant-based beverages.
Yeah.
I think that's where I think this region can be prouder and voice out more what is already here, and take that to lift it to the.
What do you think? Yes, exactly. It should be going the other way. Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, going back to my earlier answer, I mean, starting with a strong why, you know, if you look at the demographics, urbanization, wealth creation, changing family structures, you know, Asia is where it's at, you know, so, you know, the bulk of dollar, you know, volume-led consumption growth, both behaviorally and income and demographics, is for us in India, China, and Southeast Asia. So it's absolutely critical to the long-term success of the company and our ability to win and grow that we win and grow in India, China, and Southeast Asia. And I think about 2 years ago, we made a very fundamental shift that is enabling that, which has gone from, you know, globally managed brands pushed out to markets to local first. So local teams with local insight, understanding local consumer and customer needs, innovating. And so we talk about being more Chinese, you know, being more Indian, you know, and somebody said each country's different. The first time I went to Mumbai, you know, the team, the first thing I said to me is, listen, Glenn, just so you know, to win in India is to win in many Indias. And so it's not just the demographic and the cultural change across markets, but it's also within these giant geographies of India and the Indonesian archipelago and China. So we're fundamentally changing our entire way we innovate, and we are empowering teams in those markets. You know, one of our global biggest chocolate innovation centers now in Mumbai. Biscuits innovation is now in Shanghai. We've got gum and candy innovation here in Singapore, and that is flowing through to more relevant products for the markets, and we are substantially accelerating our growth as a consequence. So simple things like durian fruit in Cadbury Dairy Milk. You know, you wouldn't invent that in Bourneville, where I'm from, but you do when you're in Malaysia. Cocoa, cashew nut. A couple of years ago, we invented a wasabi and roast chicken Oreo biscuit. And the board were like, is that Oreo? And we were like, yeah, but it works in China. You know, we sold out in 10 minutes. We had 300 million hits on social media when we launched roast chicken Oreo. So we are really, really getting into very, very localized innovation, and it's working, and our growth is accelerating in the region as a result because we're more relevant.
Yeah, and for you, Kerry, you're actually, you know, people get on an aircraft, they have the opportunity to taste some of these innovations that you're now putting on the platform. How do you see that sort of rolling out? Sort of last night's announcement, what's next? You're going to be able to sort of work more closely and develop more startups. I've heard a mention of your sort of kitchen facilities being made available to startups. So where's the next stage of your activities?
Actually, we are more of a B2B provider. So clearly, whilst we try to understand what the consumer trends are and some of the latest technology, we obviously work with our customers very closely. A lot of it is about developing the product that the customers are looking for. So there's a bit of demand that will be generated from the consumers, who then obviously demand for certain things, and then we work with our airline customers to then use those products and try to launch it within the flight menu. There is a certain process to putting products on board a flight. And because of the food safety aspects, we're very strict on the QA aspect, so we don't just take any source of ingredients. So there's a process of QA before we even say, okay, this is products fit for airlines. So it'll take a while, but you know, it's things like this that events like this that will help to educate both the consumer as well as our customer. And then once they ask for certain things, we obviously will work with the startups to actually bring those on board.
Okay, so again, open for business, which I think is really important. Maybe just continuing that line of sort of where ideas are coming from, obviously from customers, but we heard yesterday about being a hub here in Singapore. We had the CEO of Food Valley here last week, Roger Van Hoesel, and sort of talking to him about Wageningen and the success there. Dirk, research here, engagement with research. Actually, Dirk was born in Wageningen, so he sort of knows, he can pronounce it better than me. But how do you see the sort of potential with research here with large companies like yours?
Yeah, so it's pronounced Wageningen.
I told you.
No, I think Singapore is a great place for creating that, and I think if you look at how ADM we built up our facility here, we did that together with great support from the EDB. I think fostering these kind of centers where companies come together, people come together, minds come together, that really can generate great ideas, and I think that's also it's the cross-pollination, because people are easily can jump between companies, they learn from each other, they bring knowledge between the companies, and it's also that the customers know where to go. I think linking that then with academic society and working with collaborations and startups and events like this, really put everything, all the power together. And I think that's, if you look at Silicon Valley, if you look at Food Valley, and I would really, the ideas that I've heard here to start up in Singapore, that's, I think, very important for a region like this. That it's not only about having innovations pop up, but also the structural marketplace, so to maybe to call it like that, where that really is just the buzz of the day. And also where people with ideas know where they can find a home, where they can connect with people that can help them, and together improve ideas to bring to market. I think that's the key, bringing innovation to market and not only talk about it.
Sirichit, Thailand's done quite a lot of work with the Netherlands and sort of focused on the Food Valley success. What exposure have you had to that, or how do you work with research institutions?
So we have different kind of programs, but one of the approach that I have mentioned earlier is that we take a proactive approach as well. In Thailand, with the structure similar to Food Valley in Netherlands, but in Thailand they have the program called Food Innopolis, and this is sponsored by the government. So this with the key objective of Food Innopolis is to connect the private sector with the public sector, especially all the universities where we have all the knowledge and competence. But the missing piece is how can we take that idea into the marketplace. So this is come our role as one of the key players in the tapioca, and which is one of the key economic plan in Thailand. So we set up we call Taiwan R&D outpost in one of the leading university in Thailand, so that we can strengthen more collaboration, and as well we transfer the knowledge from industry to the university as well. So this is just to give you one key example. And we have as well other collaboration to different institutes in Thailand, depending on their strength, their focus, and what we can connect together for the good synergy.
Just a point, just to see if we have any questions in the audience. Here's an opportunity to ask these innovators. Okay? No questions at the moment, that's fine. We'll keep going, that's good. And I suppose actually sort of bringing it back down, we've sort of heard of the things that we are doing, that we want to do, particular programs. But let's sort of, get honest here. What's the great frustration? What's not working? What are the roadblocks that you keep running into when we're trying to run corporate innovation programs? What's the Dirk? Oh, Kerry's quick to the
P&L pressure, right? It's always, it takes a lot of time and effort to innovate. I think, this is something that we have to acknowledge, and it takes a lot of tenacity as well to keep pushing things ahead. And then you've got to balance it with the P&L that you have to manage. So, it's and again, it's about your shareholders, about your employees, and obviously about the company itself. So the balance is always there. And unless you, make it a strategic initiative to actually push through with innovation to drive new products and services, it's not going to happen. So it takes a lot of effort to keep this going.
Yeah, I think for us it's probably best summed up as speed, flexibility, and inertia. And I think when you've got very substantial capital investment in existing assets, and you're a publicly listed company, you are trying to optimize and drive scale. And if you've put a $70 million investment in a new chocolate line, and that makes a bar of chocolate, but it doesn't make a bar of chocolate with biscuit in. It's, you know, to innovate is hard because you've got assets you need to leverage, you need to utilize, you need to get a return on. So getting the balance for us of how do we plant more seeds and see what sprouts and we can really grow and invest in, at the same time as maximizing return on investment on, you know, very substantial capital investments. It is that balance, and that does impact speed, you know, of decision making, of investment. And so we're trying to invest in a more flexible supply chain, more flexible mindset, and different ways to think about the P&L to create space for people to innovate. And you need to do all this in big companies that have very, very sort of deliberate, robust structures and ways of working on managing the P&L, the financials, the delivery of the week, the month, the quarter. So, you know, creating sort of space and flexibility in the supply chain and giving people room to accelerate and empower them to make decisions lower down. All of these are kind of tactics we're trying to employ because you know, we are big and slow and process orientated in big companies.
Maybe I would like to look at it from an external point of view. I think our challenge is not so much internal, but it's really trying to convince our customers to accept and look into the innovation that we do. But I think a lot of times the first thing I hear from our customers, we're focused on cost. Our consumers don't want to pay for that. Our consumers are, you know, the mass market, which is sometimes a shame because I think sometimes it's of course, cost has to be a very important part of an innovation process, but it definitely should not be the first door you have to go through. Because sometimes you first have to innovate, and then you have to see how can you make it fit and resonate with the consumer. I think it's also about timing of innovation, and just to give the idea of the plant-based burger, ADM brought it to show the market to the plant-based burger in 1972 for the first time, and had opportunity in 1982 to serve it at a lunch between Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev. And so you see, sometimes innovation takes time to push these kind of things too, and the market to accept it. So I think those are, you know, innovation is how do you get it to the market. I think that's where a lot of times we see a challenge, that how do you connect with our customers that then have to bring it to the consumers.
Okay, Sirichit, I think we're nearly on time, so maybe a last ad. What do you think the biggest obstacle is?
I think we believe innovation is about people game, and building a culture that fosters innovation is a key challenge. But if we can make it, it will help sustain the organization. So when we say building culture, so it's very challenging for the company. How can we encourage people to have a different mindset about innovation? Innovation is not only products, but how to think beyond products. And for example, business model, packaging, new process. So it's not only the responsibility of the R&D, but it's the key responsibility for the organization. People in the organization can play the role. But to drive the change of culture, the important part is the leadership. Leadership will need to walk the talk.
Well, thank you for neatly summarizing for me. I think that was the key thing that came through. It's about leadership. It's about working with different forms of collaboration. There's no one platform that's going to do it. There is that element of walking the talk very definitely, bringing outside people in to infuse new thinking through to new tools like sprints, a whole range of activities. So there's lots of things to do, but we can keep attacking it. Everyone seems to feel that their organization's in good shape, but the important part is that they're all open for collaboration. So any startups that are looking for platforms and opportunities, please approach the panel afterwards. I'm sure they all have plenty of business cards. Thank you for your attention. Please thank the panel.